It's noon Wednesday, June 4th here in Korea. Thanks for tuning in. Live from Seoul, I'm Jongno-gu.
It's very good to have you with us. I'm Mark Broom. It's local election day here in Korea. Polling stations around the nation opened at 6 a.m. Korea time, and they will remain open until 6 p.m. So we are exactly at the halfway point of the voting day.
Right, and as of 11 a.m. on this election day, that's 1 hour ago, turnout for the entire nation stands at 18.9%. That's nearly 7.8 million of Korea's 41.3 million eligible voters. We must point out that this does not include the early voting turnout figure. This is just for today.
Yes, breaking it down by cities. First, in Seoul, here we are at 18.2% now. The southern port city of Busan, 18.4%. Daegu as well, 18.4%. Incheon, Gwangju, Daejeon and Ulsan are all between 16 and 17%. The administrative city of Sejong stands at 22.5%.
And looking at the region, starting with the most populous GyeonggiDo province, turnout there is at 17.2% as of 1 hour ago. All of the other provincial areas have a turnout of over 20%, with the only exception being Gyeongsangnam-do province at 19.4%. So voters are casting their ballots for the over 3,900 city mayor, district and provincial governor, councilor and education chief posts up for grabs.
Our Song Ji-son is standing by at a polling station in Seoul Central Jongno-gu District. Ji-son, 6 hours have passed since the doors opened. I guess with it being lunchtime now in Korea, you must be seeing a steady stream of voters.
Good afternoon, guys. Now, speaking of afternoon, we're seeing more and more people coming in here to cast their votes to select the regional officials and the education superintendent. Now, I told you earlier in the morning that people have been lining up outside the polling points to be the first to cast their votes for this year's election. Now, Seoul's turnout rate is slowly catching up with the average of national turnout rate. Now, I have an updated figure for noon, which is 22% for Seoul and over 23% for the nation's average turnout rate. Now, of course, this rate will continue to rise as we head into the afternoon with only 6 hours remaining for this year's local elections. Now, it's been especially hard to predict how the races will turn out this time around with the adoption of the early voting period and factoring in the impact of the Seoul ferry disaster. Now, here in Seoul, the rate of those in their 20s and 30s are the highest in the nation at 39.7%. Slightly outnumbering those in their 50s and older at 39.6%. Now, the young vote was also the highest during the early election, accounting for nearly 16% of the total 11.5% early turnout. Now, I'm seeing a better mix of age group here at Jongno-gu District, and there are more people in their 30s and 40s showing up here to cast their votes for the election. Now, these younger generations are usually considered progressive, while the elderly are more conservative, so voting numbers between these two groups will be one of the deciding factors in whether incumbent Mayor Park Won-soon of the opposition party will continue at his post or the ruling Saenuri Party's multi-term lawmaker Chung Mong-jun will beat the odds. I'm Song Ji-son reporting live from Jongno-gu District in Seoul.
Thank you very much, Ji-son. Now, GyeonggiDo province, a region on the outskirts of Seoul, has been getting a lot of attention at this year's election, not only because of its location and huge population, but also for the tight race that is expected there between the ruling and main opposition party.
Now, for more, we go live to our Connie Lee standing by at a polling station in GyeonggiDo province. Connie, how are things looking?
Well, Jinju and Mark, I'm here in the city of Suwon in GyeonggiDo province, and here we definitely see more and more voters coming through to this polling station to cast their ballots. Now, voters have varied in age range, with both the young and old coming out, and also families coming out together to cast their ballots. Now, citizens here are voting for governor of GyeonggiDo province. The outcome, however, is very unpredictable this year, as it is one of the tightest races in the nation. But besides Besides that, a lot of the eyes are on this area of Korea because of the regional significance of GyeonggiDo Province. This region is right outside of the capital city, so politics here and ultimately the outcome of the race here play a very influential role in the central government. GyeonggiDo Province also covers a very large area, like you mentioned earlier, with almost 10 million eligible voters. Also this year, people are looking at how the citizens here will vote. The recent Seoul ferry disaster especially affected many of the citizens in this province because the city of Ansan, or the location of the high school that lost hundreds of students and teachers in the ferry accident, is actually in GyeonggiDo. So there's a lot of interest now on how the recent tragedy will affect the election results here. Mark Chin-ju.
Well, the ferry disaster certainly has swayed the opinions of people here in different ways, and the candidates have been talking about that during their campaigns, and obviously going to affect the voter sentiment. The race, nevertheless, is expected to be extremely close. Tell us about the two candidates there.
It's a very tight race between the ruling Saenuri parties, Nam Kyung-pil, and Kim Jin-pyo, the main opposition party, New Politics Alliance for Democracy. Now, both candidates have a lot of similarities, actually. They both have emphasized safety issues and economic growth in their political platforms. They're also both from the same city of Suwon, went to the same high school, and are career politicians. Nam is a 5-time lawmaker and former deputy floor leader. Kim is a 3-time lawmaker and was once a cabinet member of Korea's previous president, Roh Moo-hyun. So who will be the next governor of GyeonggiDo Province? Well, I think that's up to the voters. Reporting live from Suwon, this has been Connie Lee.
Now, President Park Geun-hye also cast her vote in today's local elections. At around 9 a.m., the president visited a polling booth nearby the presidential office, which is located in Jongno-gu District. There she went through the same procedure as other voters to cast her ballot, and after voting, the president shook hands with observers at the polling station. As the nationwide elections will be the first of its kind since President Park took office last year, the outcome will be a barometer of public sentiment towards the current administration. The elections also come just 7 weeks after the Seoul ferry disaster, in which more than 300 people were killed or remain missing.
Now, let's go over to the ruling Saenuri Party's headquarters located near the National Assembly in Seoul's GyeonggiDo area, where our Ji Myung-gil is standing by for us.
It looks as though things are rather quiet there now, Myung-gil.
Right, it is. It's only the media are currently present here at the Saenuri Party headquarters, as most candidates and lawmakers went to polling stations this morning to cast ballots. In front of the Situation Room, the 17 pictures of Saenuri Party candidates for the mayoral and provincial governor posts are displayed, and there's also a bulletin with the names of all the Saenuri Party candidates for local council members, county heads, ward members, and education superintendents. Beside the names are blank boxes. These will later be used to indicate whether they won today's elections or lost. Saenuri Party leaders, including the ruling party's floor leader Lee Wang-gu, are expected to arrive here at around 6 p.m. Korea time when voting in the local elections ends.
Well, certainly is extremely quiet there, Myung-gil. And as we've been reporting, the Seoul ferry disaster has had a big impact on voter sentiment. Ruling party leaders have been asking the public to support their candidates and give President Park a chance to make things right. What indicators should we be paying attention to?
Well, voter turnout among the younger generation could be the key. Some analysts have said the younger and more liberal voters will turn out en masse to cast ballots in the ruling Saenuri Party and judge upon the government. As you said, the ruling party candidates and its leaders have been asking that voters support President Park Geun-hye so she can successfully work through her term. They have also vowed to fix the social problems that were exposed through the ferry disaster. The Saenuri Party currently has an upper hand in the traditional conservative strongholds of the two Gyeongsangdo provinces, the city of Ulsan and Jeju Island. Tight races are expected in GyeonggiDo Province and for the mayoral post for the port city of Incheon. The Saenuri Party is especially paying close attention to what happens in the two Chungcheongdo provinces, as the region is known to swing in favor of both major parties. A high voter turnout has usually worked in favor of the opposition party, as it often means greater participation from younger and more liberal voters. This was Kim Young-gil reporting live from Saenuri Party headquarters in Seoul.
Now let's connect live to our Kwon So-ah, who is at the National Assembly, where the main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy is keeping a close eye on today's election for obvious reasons. So-ah?
Good afternoon. I'm here at the National Assembly Members Building, which the New Politics Alliance for Democracy chose to serve as their situation room instead of at their headquarters. Now, throughout the morning, it has been very quiet and is still this afternoon, as most party leaders and candidates have been out and about all day long yesterday to win the hearts of as many voters as possible during their final hours of campaigning. Now, candidates and members especially focused in Seoul and in the swing regions of GyeonggiDo Province and Chungcheongdo Province. Incumbent Mayor Park Won-soon visited a fire station and the Seoul Metro subway to check on safety measures, since the key pledges among the candidates this year concern public safety. NPAD co-leaders Kim Han-gil and An Chol-soo paid tribute to the victims of the Seoul ferry accident at Seoul City Hall's memorial altar. Party members will gradually arrive as the day progresses and will take their seats in front of 10 monitors that are set up here on a stage. Now, many of them are expected to arrive later in the evening when the voting comes to an end at 6 p.m. and the first exit polls come out.
And so some of the leaders have been at their local polling stations to cast their own ballots.
That's right, Mark. Now, at 8 a.m. this morning, NPAD co-leader Kim Han-gil and his wife cast their ballot at a polling station in Seoul's Gwangjang-dong. However, An Chol-soo, the other co-leader, as well as Seoul Mayor Park Won-soon and most of the other party leaders have cast their ballots during the early voting period. Now, the candidates and, party NPAD leaders Kim Han-gil and An Chol-soo paid their tribute to the victims of the Seoul ferry accident yesterday. And let's go over to our third question, please.
And let's say these elections are going to go down to the wire. What is the New Politics Alliance for Democracy expecting?
Well, Jinju, just like the ruling Saenuri Party, the New Politics Alliance for Democracy is saying there's no telling how the results will turn out, as 10 to 11 regions are swing regions. The NPAD is, however, expecting its candidates to win this whole mayoral race, as well as races in their traditional strongholds of Jeollabuk-do and Jeollanam-do in the southwest of the country. However, in Gwangju, also in the southwest, the party is concerned that the mayoral race between independent candidate Kang Un-tae and NPAD candidate Yoon Jang-hyun is going to be a tight one. The NPAD is asking that voters head to the polls and make a change, especially as they have been criticizing the government's handling of April's Seoul ferry accident. Now, I'll be back with more updates later here at the NPAD's Situation Room.
Thank you, Soa. Now, in almost all recent elections in Korea, swing voters have been key in deciding the fate of the candidates in the parties. Today's local elections are no exception.
Experts say voters in their 40s will most likely hold the key to who comes out of the day victorious. Na Hyun-kyung reports.
It's become an established fact in Korea that those in their 50s and older tend to support the conservatives, while people in their 30s and younger lean toward liberal parties. That usually leaves people in their 40s making up most of the swing votes. Experts say the Park Geun-hye administration's handling of the Seoul ferry disaster has changed today's election dynamics in many ways.
Swing voters who saw Prime Minister nominee An Dae-hee withdraw his nomination due to personal ethical issues felt the government was not trustworthy. If a lot of those voters head to the polls, they will likely sway the election results.
But it's not just the ruling party that's being hurt.
There's bound to be a so-called incumbent advantage because the campaign came to a halt for a few weeks due to the ferry disaster. That made it very difficult for challenging candidates to establish their positions.
As for the roughly 12% of the electorate who came out for last week's two-day early voting, most experts say it's unlikely that this will pump up the turnout.
If people take Thursday off, they can go on a long holiday because Memorial Day falls on Friday. So I think those who participated in the early voting are probably people who were going to vote anyway, but can't because of their schedule, meaning there won't be a drastic increase in the overall voter turnout.
All that remains now is to see how many people head to the polls and for their ballots to be counted. 나현경, Arirang News.
Now, whatever happens in these elections, the results are going to have a significant impact on Korea's political landscape over the coming months.
They could also be a good indicator of what we can expect in the next presidential race. Our Park Ji-won reports.
The results of the June 4th local elections will significantly change the political landscape of Korea. If the ruling camp wins the election, despite harsh public criticism against the incumbent government following its poor handling of the ferry disaster, the Park Geun-hye administration could gain enough political momentum to steer the state affairs for the rest of her term. The government's ambitious policy goals, which include deregulation reforms and a 3-year plan for economic innovation, may also gain political support. However, if the ruling Saenuri Party loses to opposition camps, not only in its traditionally weak regions, but also in regions where neck-and-neck races are expected, the Conservative Party will be in a turmoil starting from an upcoming party convention scheduled in July. Politicians inside the party who are close to President Park will most likely be held responsible. The main opposition New Politics Alliance for Democracy will also face diverging scenarios according to the results of the elections. If it wins the elections, the late March merger of the former main opposition Democratic Party and political icon An Chol-soo's New Political Vision Party will gain the justification it so desperately needs. The co-leadership of Kim Han-gil and An Chol-soo will be strengthened in preparing for the next general elections and eventually the next presidential election. But in the case that the main opposition loses in major neck-and-neck race regions, the co-leadership will be significantly hurt, and the fledgling party could face the danger of being embroiled in factional strife. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
Stay up to date on the latest news out of Korea, connecting to our team of reporters about the issues that matter to Korea. On air, on your mobile, online. Find out more about Korea on NEWSLINE at Noon with Mark Broom and Jin-ju.
I'm Jin-ju.
Market researcher, strategy analytics, said Thursday that LG Electronics brought in about...
And in other news, it seems another wrinkle has been added to the already strained relations between Korea and Japan over Tokyo's continued territorial claims to the Korea-controlled Dokdo Island in the East Sea. The Japanese government says it will send a senior official to a gathering in Tokyo Thursday that will support Japan's attempts to lay claim to Dokdo, which is called Takeshima in Japan. The Minister of State for Okinawa and Northern Territories Affairs, Ichita Yamamoto, said Tuesday that Deputy Cabinet Minister, a member of the House of Representatives in the Diet, Masazumi Gotoda, will attend the event. Gotoda is ranked higher than vice ministers of government departments. Minister Yamamoto says the government was trying hard to find an effective way to express Tokyo's position on the Dokdo issue and found that this was their final decision. The month of May was one to remember for Korean automakers in the United States. Kia Motors America says it sold more than 60,000 cars last month for the first time ever, a 15% jump from a year earlier. The company attributed the bumper month to high demand for the redesigned Optimus sedan and its compact Seoul model. Hyundai Motor America also turned in a record performance with sales up nearly 4% compared to the same period last year. And it sold more than 70,000 units in the U.S. thanks to increased demand for the firm's luxury models like the Ecus and Genesis.
In just 2 years' time, the number of smartphone users in the world could outnumber those using basic phones. That's according to a report by Sweden-based Ericsson Mobility, which also says the number of mobile subscriptions, growing at an annual average of 7%, will exceed the world's population next year. Nearly 65% of all phones purchased globally in the first quarter of this year were smartphones, and the number of subscriptions is expected to reach 5.6 billion by 2019. The report adds that a smartphone user in 2019 will be using up nearly 4 times the amount of monthly mobile data that a user does today. Now, Korea has placed a lowly 90th out of 138 countries when it comes to people who say they are living happy lives. US-based Gallup says Korea scored 63 according to its index, which is the same as the Czech Republic, Luxembourg and Kazakhstan. Except for Denmark, the top 10 countries were from South and Central America. Paraguay topped the list for the 3rd straight year, followed by Panama. Gallup asked the respondents questions like, did you feel respected yesterday? And did you have plenty of rest yesterday? And if they said yes, they added points. In each country, the agency added 1,000 residents over the age of 15. Now, some exciting scientific news, because scientists at NASA say they've discovered a new type of rocky planet orbiting a star 560 light years away from Earth. The new planet, named Kepler 10c, is 17 times heavier than Earth, but is just twice its size. Now, this is noteworthy because scientists previously didn't believe a rocky planet could be so large. While they still don't fully understand how the mega planet was formed, NASA says the discovery could potentially change scientists' understanding of the origin of the universe.
And time now for a look through the international headlines we're following this hour. For that, we turn to our Eunice Kim standing by at the news center.
Eunice, US President Barack Obama is promising to beef up military support in Europe.
That's right. He's in Europe at the start of a 4-day European trip. He promised to boost U.S. support to the NATO allies in Eastern Europe who fear they could be next in the firing line following Russia's intervention in Ukraine. Here's Kim Ji-yeon with the report.
During his visit to Poland on Tuesday, U.S. President Barack Obama pledged to set up a $1 billion fund that will be used to increase U.S. military deployments in Eastern Europe. It is expected to bolster the defense capabilities of NATO allies in response to Russia's actions in Ukraine. President Obama also highlighted the need to provide economic support for the ailing Ukrainian economy as Kiev tries to settle a gas bill with a Russian supplier.
Poland is joining us in providing Ukraine with critical economic assistance, that our countries are absolutely united in the need to stand with the Ukrainian people as they move forward.
The move is the latest in a series that are meant to reassure U.S. allies of support in the event of a Russian provocation. President Obama urged Russian President Vladimir Putin to rebuild the trust shattered by its annexation of Ukraine's Crimea region. Obama is expected to discuss further support for Ukraine when he meets Ukrainian President-elect Petro Poroshenko in Warsaw on Wednesday. During his 3-country tour, Obama will have several opportunities to meet Putin. They're both scheduled to attend events together in Paris on Thursday and another in Normandy on Friday. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
A look now at some elections that have wrapped around the globe. In war-torn Syria, polls are closed in what's widely being seen as a basic rubber stamp vote for the Assad regime. President Bashar al-Assad is expected to grasp a landslide victory into a third 7-year term in office. The state had called the vote a sign the country is moving forward, but his opponents and world governments condemned the election as a sham and a, quote, grotesque parody. UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon had urged Damascus not to hold the election amid an ongoing 3-year civil war that has killed some 150,000 people and displaced 42% of Syrians. Over in Egypt, former military chief Abdel Fattah el-Sisi has been declared the country's next president, officially replacing the Islamist leader he deposed last year. Its election commission announced el-Sisi won with nearly 97% of the ballot. Voter turnout was just over 47%. Hundreds of people took to Cairo's Tahrir Square to celebrate, dancing and setting off fireworks. While opponent Hamdin Sabahi conceded defeat, he alleged the vote wasn't without irregularities, saying some of his campaign staff were detained and members of el-Sisi's camp were allowed inside polling stations. Beijing has defended its detention of government critics ahead of today's anniversary of the Tiananmen Square massacre as lawful. Foreign Ministry spokesman Hong Lei, in a daily briefing on Tuesday, said there are only lawbreakers and no so-called dissidents in China and called on its legal authority to be respected. Today marks 25 years since the massacre at Tiananmen Square, the bloody crackdown against pro-democracy student activists at Beijing Center. The massive protests remain a taboo subject in mainland China, labeled as counter-revolutionary.
Thank you, Eunice, for that. And those are the stories we're following at this hour.
Jinju and I will be back at the same time tomorrow. Thank you for watching.